Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians May 19, 2023 board meeting. My name is Carol Mountain. I am the board president. I would like to call this meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. First, some housekeeping information on how this meeting will be conducted. Today is the second day of our meeting. This scheduling was due to several logistical problems, and we apologize if this inconveniences anyone. We will take public comment on each agenda item. Members of the public who request to speak will have up to 3 minutes to speak, and you will be notified when you have 30 seconds remaining. Your name is not necessary, but please indicate how you would like us to identify you. For the sake of efficiency, the executive officer may respond directly to public comment or defer to the appropriate staff person or counsel as appropriate. For any questions directed to board members, I will either answer the question or direct it to the board members as appropriate. We will now do an alphabetical roll call to establish quorum. Board members, when your name is called, please introduce yourself and give a brief description of your role within the board. Taisha Brown.
Here.
Thank you. Alita Carpenter.
Yes, I'm here. I'm the chair of the Legislation and Regulations Committee.
Thank you. John Durking.
Good morning, John Deerking here, public member and member of the executive committee.
Gloria Guzman.
Good morning. I'm here.
Abraham Hill.
Abraham Hill, member of the Education Committee.
Mr. Maxey's late. Leslie Moore.
Good morning, I'm here, member of the Enforcement Committee.
And I believe Ms. Niebles is not here yet. Rashima Sonson.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm here. I'm a member of the Legislation and Regulations Committee.
And I'm Dr. Carol Mountain, and I'm the president of the board and also the education member. So based on the roll call, we have a quorum. I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Yamaguchi to introduce the board staff.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. Welcome. With us today, our AEO, Mark Ito, our SNAC, Beth DeYoung, manager, Shelley Brown, our licensing supervisor, Michael Hall, and a vast array of NECs, Judith McLeod, Faith Silverman, Charlene De La Rosa, Jessica Gomez, Tara Davila, Cindy Fairchild, Roberta Thompson, and I think Mary Barrett, but I'm not entirely sure on that one. And some analysts, Nicholas Gonzalez, and of course, Rebecca Ball. And Madam Chair, I'm going to cheat a little bit here and say that with great sorrow and sadness, Board Counsel Swenson will not be joining us. He's under the weather, and with us today is the department's Deputy Chief Counsel, Grace Arupo Rodriguez. Grace?
Hi, good morning. I would turn on my camera, but all that seems to be happening is showing the screen. So as long as you can hear me, but good morning. I would love to be here in other circumstances. I'm happy to fill in, but we are hoping that Ken gets better soon. So, but I'm happy to be here to assist. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I hope Mr. Swenson gets better as well. Let's see. Review. Are we ready for number 3? Yes. Review and approval meeting minutes for March 3, 2023. We have minutes from our board meeting on March 3, 2023 to approve. These are included in your packets and posted online. The link to the YouTube video of the meeting is printed on this agenda. Can I have a motion to approve and a second for the March 3, 2023 minutes?
Madam President, John Deerking would so move the March 3, 2023 board meeting minutes if there's no errors or omissions.
Second, Taisha Brown.
Thank you so much. Is there any discussion or questions of the board members? Seeing none, I would like to ask for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
I would, thank you so much. I will do a roll call and establish who is in favor, opposed, or abstains. Ms. Brown?
In favor.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes, in favor.
Ms. Guzman?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Sonson?
Yes, in favor.
And I am also in favor. That is put through unanimously. We will now move on to agenda item 4, fiscal and budget updates. And we have Ms. Harmony D. Filippo from the DCA Budget Office to provide an update. Welcome and thank you so much for coming.
Hi, good morning. I'm actually Karen Munoz, the budget manager over at DCA. Harmony DiFilippo was absent today out on a prior engagement, so I will be presenting these documents with you. I want to thank first the board and the executive staff for allowing me a few minutes to present on agenda item 4 and the documents included. First, I'm going to go ahead and start with the board's expenditures, items 4A, page 1 of your materials. These projections are based on actual data through fiscal month 9. This report includes 2021-22 actual expenditures compared to the 2022-23 budget and the projected expenditures. Over this 2-year period, costs have decreased as a result of lower costs in the operating expenses, which are mainly attributed to the AG and OH costs going down. As you move towards the end of the document, you'll see that the budget had a beginning base budget of $18.56 million. Year to date, the board has expended approximately $12.8 million and is projected to spend a total of $17.9 million, creating a reversion to the board's fund of $664,000, a reversion percentage of 3.58%. The next document is the board's revenue projection. This is item 4A, page 2 of your materials. This report includes receipts collected through March of this fiscal year and estimated projected revenues to year end. I'll go further into the projections of this document as we transition to your fund condition. The board's fund condition, which is item 4A, page 3 of your materials, is the board's it's the board's fund condition statement. And as a reminder, when we look at this document, we review it from top to bottom and then left to right. The left column is the board's prior year 21-22 actuals. It shows the board began 21-22 with an adjusted beginning balance of just over $4.4 million, collected $17.9 million in revenues with $5.155 million from initial license fees, just over $12 million from license renewals, and $705,000 for was collected for issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenues. The board expended just over $19 million, which includes $1.33 million in direct draws to the fund for statewide pro rata and pension payments. The board ended 21-22 with just over $2.5 million reserve, or about 1.6 months in reserve. The current year, the board projects revenue of just over $23 million, with approximately $6.6 million projected for initial license fees, $15.5 million for renewals, and $1 million from the issuance of citations, fine, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board is projected to expend approximately $9.2 million between authorized expenditures and direct draws to the fund, leaving the board with a fund balance of approximately $6.4 million, or 4 months in reserve. Budget Office will continue to monitor the board's revenue and expenditure report and report back to the board with monthly expenditure projections as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year. A few things to note on the board's fund condition statement. The fund condition is a snapshot in time. One of the main factors driving expenditure increases in future years is a result of personal service adjustments. These include general salary increases, as well as employee compensation and retirement rate adjustments. The Budget Office includes a conservative 3% increase to expenditures on the fund condition statement to account for these ongoing incremental adjustments. The fund balance reserve is the amount of funds remaining at the end of any given fiscal year. The board's fund has a statutory fund balance limit of 24 months, typically 3.6 months is sufficient. As you can see, the fund balance is healthy and showing growth over the next 3 years. The Budget Office has no concerns at this time and will continue to monitor the budget and provide updates to the board on a regular basis. And lastly, I just want to note to the board that any future legislation or unanticipated events could result in the board's need for additional resources, which could add cost pressures to the fund. The Budget Office will continue to monitor the board's fund condition statement as we keep a line of communication with the board's executive staff open for any future needs or expectations. Again, I want to thank the board and executive staff for allowing me the opportunity to present at today's meeting, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the board? Seeing no questions, thank you so much for that report. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. And I believe we're ready to move on to agenda item 5, board update from DCA. Melissa Gear, Deputy Director, is with us from the DCA.
This is the moderator. Do we need to take public comment on agenda item 4?
No need to take, it was just informational.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
No worries. Thank you so much. Let's go
you.
ahead and welcome Melissa Gear. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning.
Brian
Unfortunately, Melissa Gear couldn't be here. My name is Brian Clifford. I'm with the Department of Consumer Affairs and here to provide the DCA update.
Thank you so much, Mr. Clifford, for being here.
Yeah, and I apologize. I know Melissa would love to be here today. I have several updates that I'll be sharing with you this morning, but before I get started, I just wanted to take a moment to welcome Member Guzman to the board. And then I also like to take a moment and recognize Board Member Rooks for her service on the board and thank her for her commitment and dedication to protecting California consumers. Since 2017, the state of California has participated in Public Service Recognition Week to express appreciation for civil servants and the essential work they do. DCA celebrated the week with a department-wide appreciation message to staff, social media highlighting staff testimonials, and ended the week with a video highlighting employee service. Public Service Recognition Week was celebrated on May 7th through 13th. And I'd like to thank you and the dedicated board staff for all of your hard work daily. We are grateful for your service. I'd like to next present on our DEI efforts. Established last fall, the department's DEI steering committee is comprised of 12 executive leaders from the boards, bureaus, and the department, and has been working on many items, including updating the strategic planning process, training, and the development of an informational DEI fact sheet, which was distributed to board leadership. The strategic planning process has been updated to embed DEI into the process, including a survey, a DEI section in the environmental scan, video messaging, and a brief training video. DCA's solid team will be reaching out to executive officers to discuss developing or updating strategic plans accordingly. In addition, all DCA solid trainers will complete a 50-hour diversity, equity, inclusion training certification program through the University of Massachusetts. On April 28th, 2023, Director Kirkmeyer issued a memorandum on DCA's commitment to employees to increase the availability of DEI courses through DEI's solid training unit. A DEI section has been added to the homepage of the DCA Learning Management System, or LMS, and employees can access and register now for 3 courses that will be available in June. Over the coming months, additional courses and educational information will be available. DCA's first DEI fact sheet has also been released. It was developed as an informational tool and includes the department's 3 DEI initiatives, memorializes DCA services that support DEI efforts, and includes DEI terminology as it applies to DCA. On May 12th last week, the DEI Steering Committee held its quarterly meeting in person and elected a chairperson and vice chairman, Yafana Lamar from CSLB and Paul Sanchez from the Speech Language Board. We look forward to updating you in the months ahead on their progress. A reminder we always like to share, board members must complete the board member orientation training within 1 year of their appointment or reappointment. On June 20th, 2023, the BMOT will be offered in person in Sacramento, and then again on October 10th, 2023 at a location to be determined. Members can register for this training via DCA's LMS. There are 2 additional DCA-wide training mandatory trainings for 2023. This includes sexual harassment prevention training and information security awareness. All DCA employees and appointees, including board members, will need to complete the sexual harassment prevention training this year. This training is required every odd number year and is approximately 2 hours. If you have any questions regarding training, please contact our Board and Bureau Relations team. As the fiscal year comes to an end, please submit your travel expense claims, TECs, as soon as possible, but no later than 5 p.m. on Wednesday, June 8th. Claims submitted after this date will still be processed. However, they will not be paid until July 2023. For questions regarding travel claims, please contact our Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations, Melissa Gear. And next, as you are aware, legislation passed last year amending provisions of the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act to extend the ability of state bodies, such as DCA boards and bureaus, to conduct public meetings virtually through July 1st. Absent the passing of new legislation to extend these provisions, DCA's boards and bureaus will not be allowed to conduct meetings virtually after July 1st. DCA is aware of legislation recently introduced, Senate Bill 544, which removes certain teleconference requirements from the Open Meeting Act. This bill was recently amended to do the following. 1, require members of a state body participating remotely to disclose whether any individuals 18 years or older that are present in the room at a remote location and the general nature of the members' relationship with those individuals. And 2, require state bodies to end or adjourn a meeting upon discovering that a means of remote participation required by the bill has failed and cannot be restored. This bill does not include an urgency clause and would not take effect until January 1st, 2024. Boards and bureaus should prepare to conduct public meetings in person in the interim beginning July 1st. On January 5th, 2023, a new federal law took effect that enables service members and their spouses who hold professional licensure in a different state to practice in California within the same professional discipline and at a similar scope of practice if they are required to relocate to California due to their military orders. Since becoming aware of the new law, DCA has been collaborating with its agency on how best to implement it. DCA will share information as it becomes available, but in the meantime, should your board receive an inquiry from a service member or spouse regarding this new law, we advise you to contact DCA Legal Affairs. And then finally, DCA submitted its 2022 annual report to the legislature, and the report is now available on DCA's website. This annual report includes a new design and additional reporting metrics such as military licensing data, now required of all boards and bureaus. We hope that you will take the time to review this impressive compilation of the valuable work of our boards and bureaus. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I welcome any questions from the board.
Thank you so much for that report. And I'm looking, are there any questions from the board members? Seeing no questions, once again, thank you so much for the report. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We will now move on to agenda item number 6, the National Council of State Boards of Nursing presentation and board discussion. That's NCSBN. I'm very happy to announce that we will now have a presentation from our friends and colleagues from the National Council of State Boards of Nursing. Joining us is Dr. Nancy Spector, Director of Nursing Education, and Ms. Nicole Lavanos, Director of State Governmental Affairs. Thank you so much for coming and welcome.
Thank you so much. Is Alicia Bird on? Is she going to speak before I speak? Or
This
do
is this is a moderator. I just promoted Alicia up.
Okay. Okay, well,
I think I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, we can hear
yeah.
you.
Hear me? Okay. So we're kind of out of a different order. I think Jim Claycorn was going to go first, but I will go ahead. Unless Jim, would you like to go first, or should I go ahead? It's muted. Okay. So
Mr. Cleghorn doesn't seem to be on.
okay, let me go first. Board members, thank you so much and for having giving us the opportunity to present and have some time on your agenda this morning. I want to say thank you to staff, President Mountain, and also to Elaine Yamaguchi for working with me over the past several months to make this happen. We really appreciate the opportunity. I want to talk to you about 3 things this morning: how to get engaged with us, a quick way to get engaged with us, some of the resources, and also talk about the one key thing that will unlock all of that is our password system. So the first thing I wanted to mention to you is, have you received the handout, Elaine, in the mail, this handout? I'll hold it up if you can see me.
This is the moderator, Miss Bird. It doesn't appear your camera's on.
Okay.
If you click the start video button down at the bottom of WebEx, that should turn on your camera.
Okay. Can you see me now? And my camera, let me move over, move down. Can you see me okay?
Yeah, you might. Okay, now you're in frame.
Okay. Oh,
Actually,
wow.
this is Elaine Yamaguchi. Board members, we attempted to overnight the materials to you, and apparently our courier service seems to have gone awry for a couple of board members. Our analyst, Rebecca Ball, did try to scan and email copies of this to you all as well, just in case. But Miss Bird, take it
Yes.
away.
I will take it away. Can you see me okay?
Yes.
All right. It looks like I have a coat on over a jacket, and I do. It's really cold here in the office, so I got really cold, so you'll bear with me. Anyway, I'll point out a few of the resources that you'll probably get soon. It's probably on the FedEx highway. This one resource right here is a really glossy resource, and I want to talk a little bit about it. This resource is great. It was just developed by our marketing department, and for the first time, we shared it with the membership in March at our mid-year meeting, and we did hand it out to the president's group. On our website, ncsbn.org, we have many, many resources, and it's laid out in a way that I think it makes it easy to access, but like anything that you don't go into very often, it may be a little challenging to navigate unless you're in there every day. And probably in your board member roles, you may not access ncsbn.org that often. So this resource, when you do receive it, I ask you to take a few minutes and look through it. Marketing did an excellent job putting this together just for a quick look. If you look at the top, first of all, it promotes our 45th anniversary, which is in August, which we're really excited about. But inside it says world leader in nursing, NCSBN world leader in nursing regulatory knowledge and advancement. And it gives a quick snapshot and summary of some of our resources. And once you look at this, it may drive you to the website and kind of help you pinpoint some of the resources that you want to tap into. And on the back, it talks about like our newsletter, but I think our end focus is a little bit even broader than just a newsletter. And then leader to leader and good morning members. And some of you may be familiar with some of these resources, but when you do get this, look at it. And if you have any questions and want to delve deeper into some of these topics, just feel free to reach out to myself, Elaine, or even to Jim Claycorn. So I wanted to make you aware of this. Another way to engage with us is through our knowledge networks. We have a series of knowledge networks, and what these are opportunities to engage, communicate with other members, board members and staff around the country, our associate members, our international members, exam user members. And in these forums called knowledge networks, it is a virtual meeting communication. The calls in these groups are held through the Teams platform, and it's a site on our website, ncsbn.org. The EOs and the presidents have their own separate knowledge network, but we have knowledge networks for areas like APRN, advanced practice, for education, for discipline, and a variety of things. And it's a way to engage with members. There are staff that manage these sites, and these knowledge networks are held on sites called hives. And the reason why they're called hives because it's a buzz of activity around the site. I've been waiting to say that all morning. So it's a buzz of activity where members get together to change ideas, for informal networking, to talk about issues of common interest and those types of things. So, you know, if you're really busy and you just want to tap into a particular area of interest and discuss with other members, sometimes there are speakers, that type of thing. Knowledge networks is a great way to engage with us. That is an additional handout that you'll probably receive as well. And it gives a description of each of the areas, as well as the staff to contact if you have additional questions about that particular site. Now, the key to unlocking all of this, to access many things on the website, is your password, your member password. And our password system and membership database is called Passport. And many applications are supported in Passport. So if you go into Passport, you can access ICRS, the International Center for Regulatory Scholars, which Jim will talk about in a minute. And we also can access the Journal of Nursing Regulation and a number of other sites. Can you hear the phone ringing? I think they're trying to call me. So let me just say this before I give it over to Nancy. I may be some difficulties with my colleagues accessing this meeting. But Passport. So your membership password is important. If you don't have a password, let me know. We will get you set up because it's the key to accessing many of our resources. And it's 90 days. If you don't log in at least once within 90 days, it will deactivate you. Not a problem. You can do a password forget if you forget, or we can reactivate you. But that is the key. And we really encourage all of our boards of nursing, our members, board members, and staff to get a password so you can access many of these resources. So that is very important. I have some colleagues who are trying to call me because I think they're trying to access the call. I'm not quite sure what's going on. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to toss it over to Nancy at this time, and hopefully we can loop back in Jim Cleghorn because he had a couple of things that kind of dovetail to what I'm talking about. But before I go, I want to know if you have any questions for me. Anything? Well, if not at this time, I hope to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to me. And when you get this handouts, just think about me, reach out to me. We can have some conversation and I can help you with some resources. So at this point, I'm going to toss it over to Nancy, and then I'm going to see what's happening with my other colleagues. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. And it's okay that I share my screen, is that correct? So I can share my PowerPoints?
Great,
Oh.
we can see it, Nancy.
Oh, okay, perfect. I think.
I'm sorry, I had a question. So I know there are different governing bodies for nursing, and I want to understand where does this organization fall in regards to governance for nursing regulations?
Where do we fall within governance for nursing regulation?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
So I might be able to jump in. Good morning. My name is Jim Cleghorn. I'm the Director of Member Engagement and Government Affairs for NCSBN. NCSBN is a member organization. We provide support to the regulatory bodies. So NCSBN has no role in the governance of the nurses in your state other than supporting your board of nursing, lessening the burdens of state government, providing the resources to make sure that your board of nursing is as effective as it can possibly be, providing training and other resources that might be necessary or helpful to you to you and your staff there.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Okay, Jim, do you want to continue or should I continue with my slides? Either way.
I just have a brief thing, Nancy. So thank you for letting me. I'll jump in there. I apologize. I was having a bit of difficulty getting connected through WebEx, so I appreciate your patience as I got logged in. Thank you again for allowing us to take time from your board meeting to be part of your agenda today. It's been a pleasure getting to know Elaine and your board president. Elaine and I guess, Elaine, was it about 5 years ago that you started, 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity, I was the executive officer for the Georgia Board of Nursing at the time, and got to work with Elaine as she was coming on board, and have just thoroughly enjoyed that relationship and being able to continue the friendship along the way. Then had the opportunity to engage with your board president at this year's mid-year meeting in Seattle and share some ideas and talk about a few different things. Today, you've got a great group from NCSBN providing some information for you. And just before Nancy jumps in, I want to tell you a little bit about the Journal for Nursing Regulation. All of you, as Alicia mentioned to you, you've got access to Passport. And through Passport, you have access to the Journal of Nursing Regulation. You probably also have paper copies or hard copies that are mailed to the board office and then can be distributed. Wait, Elaine's shaking her head no. If that's not the case, we can certainly make sure that you do get some hard copies going forward, if you prefer that, if y'all would like to be able to have it in hand. The journal is a quarterly publication from NCSBN with peer-reviewed articles, a ton of information that I think you would find to be very helpful in your work as regulators. A lot of the information can be utilized to underpin some of the regulations that you may be considering, or to provide guidance, information as you're determining what path you ought to take as a regulator. One of the most the recent supplement was about the 2022 National Nursing Workforce Survey. It provides a ton of information about the impact of COVID on the nursing workforce. We hosted a media event in Washington, D.C. A few weeks ago to display to provide information about this edition of the journal. Have had a ton of media coverage that has stemmed from that. I hope you'll take time to read through the articles there and see the information that was displayed, and the coming impact of the coming impact of the nursing workforce on regulators. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is the ICRS, the International Center for Regulatory Scholarship. So when I started at the Georgia Board of Nursing, there was no course. There was no, there really wasn't even a manual that was left on my desk saying, hey, here's what you need to do as a regulator. And we, over time, we developed an orientation program that we thought was pretty helpful for board members, but still the staff, there really wasn't a lot out there. And we relied solely on NCSBN to be able to step up and provide resources. And one of the newest offerings that NCSBN has is the ICRS. And some of the courses that are currently enrolling right now are Introduction to Public Policy, Making Data Analysis Easy, Presentations and Public Speaking, Program and Policy Evaluation, then another one along the lines of research about reading, appraising, and critically evaluating regulatory literature. I'm sorry, I'm having a difficult time speaking this morning. Another course that people have found very interesting is the History of Nursing Regulation. All of the courses that are offered through ICRS, they're provided to you at no charge. There are courses through the certificate program. Many of the ones that I just described, they're offered on a semester or quarter system. Most of them are 6 to 8 weeks in length. You can enroll in those. We also offer courses that we call at our foundations level. They are asynchronous courses that you can go on and take at any point in time. I think if you browse through that catalog, you would find that there are resources that would be available or that would be helpful to you as a board member, including a course called The Role of the Regulatory Board Member. Courses about Administrative law. I know when, again, when I started at the Board of Nursing in Georgia, I knew very little about administrative law and how it impacted regulation. So we tried to go through and identify key gaps in the knowledge between what the regulator needs and what the individual may have when they come on board, and then present that information through the ICRS courses. Nancy, that's about to present to you, has got some wonderful courses on regulation of nursing education programs that would be beneficial to staff or to board members. So I would encourage you, once you get your passport access and you're able to log in and visit the site, look through the courses and see if any of them would be of use to you or of any interest to you. Again, they're all free. The registration process is outlined on the website. And if there's anything that we can do to help you understand that or make it a little bit easier for you, please let me know. We're so excited to have the opportunity to be with you today and hope that something that we say or do will be of use to you going down the road. If there's anything that Alicia or I can do through the member engagement department in the coming days and weeks, please let us know. And we're looking forward to hearing how we can help you. Nancy?
Great, thank you. And I think if you could pull up my slides again, that would be great. Okay, thank you. And I will just tell you when to forward them. Thank you so much. My name is Nancy Spector, as Jim was saying, and I am the Director of Nursing Education at NCSBN. And I'm so thrilled to be speaking with all of you today. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, I spoke with your educators on some of the work we're doing in nursing education. So you really have a great board there in California. My background is in nursing education. I was teaching before I came to NCSBN at Loyola University in Chicago. And so, it's really my passion. And what I do then is work with the boards of nursing on nursing education issues. And I'm also that liaison between educators and NCSBN. Next slide, please. I always like to show everybody the two-pronged licensure model that we have, particularly when I speak to educators, but also to regulators, because you can see that it really does incorporate clinical competence of the students. The student must graduate from a board-approved program, and that shows how important approval is. All of the boards of nursing approve nursing programs with the exception of Utah. And in Utah, if they are accredited, that is approval. But all of the other ones do. In 2 states, New York and Mississippi, it's done by the Board of Higher Education, but in collaboration with the Board of Nursing. So approval of nursing education programs is very important. And if you know, the dean and director, when they make the students eligible to take the NCLEX, they are telling the Board of Nursing, they are telling you that the student is clinically competent to practice at entry-level nursing. So that is really clinical competence that is written into our model. And then, of course, they have to take and pass the NCLEX. But what it also shows you is how important faculty are. Because, I said I was faculty. I remember faculty sometimes saying, well, I don't think that student really is very competent, but the NCLEX will catch them. Well, the NCLEX is not a practice exam. So it's really important for the faculty to know if and evaluate if students are competent for entry-level nursing and not make them eligible for the NCLEX until they are. So I always start with that, but next slide, please. So we're going to talk about the regulatory guidelines for approving nursing programs. And, to do that, we're going to talk about how they were developed and then what those quality indicators are. So we were given by our board the charge of all of the boards of nursing want evidence-based quality indicators of nursing education programs so that they can be legally defensive in their approval process. And to be honest, we thought that wouldn't be too hard. We'd go to the literature, and in the literature, we know, for example, that there are requirements from the accreditors, requirements from the U.S. Department of Education. They would have research in back of them, and that would be what we'd present to the board. However, what we found out is the accreditors must, because they're recognized by the Department of Education, they must meet their requirements, and so they don't have research in back of their requirements. So then we went to the U.S. Department of Education and we said, you know, what research is behind NCLEX pass rates, or, you know, licensure pass rates, graduation rates, and employment rates, because those are the biggest three. And they said there's no research behind it. We just fund programs, and in order to fund them, the students must graduate, pass the licensure exam, and get employed. So we were kind of sunk. We went back to our board and said, we would have to do this research, national research, in order to look at the evidence-based quality indicators. And they gave us permission to do that. So you can see here, we did a national Delphi, and in the Delphi, we had educators and regulators and those who work with new graduates involved. And if you're familiar with Delphi's, what it is surveys that go out to these experts. They're all experts, and there has to be consensus in what you're looking for. So we were looking for quality indicators of nursing education programs, and we did gain consensus on the first survey, actually, that went out. So it was really great consensus. Then the second and third part of our studies were to look at 5 years of annual reports. I'm sure we got them from your board. And that's quantitative data. That looks at numbers, you know, numbers of students enrolled, numbers of faculty, etc. Then we knew we needed to look also at qualitative data. So we had 5 years of the site visit documents. And the site visit is really the story of the nursing program, so that, you know, we could put that together. So next slide, please, with the other data we got. So then we had a lot of data. We did have some evidence from the literature, but then we had evidence from all 3 of our studies. So we brought in a panel of experts, and there were regulators, educators, attorneys, and researchers. And in order to be a quality indicator, it had to have at least 2 of the 4 national studies supporting it. And so you're maybe wondering, well, why'd you bring in attorneys? You know, some of the things that came out, the attorney said, this just won't work. This would not be right. So the attorneys were actually excellent in helping us with these quality indicators. We also had members from AACN, NLN, Odin that were present and helping us. So we had some really great experts to help us put this together and develop our quality indicators. So next slide, please. And we can start talking about what they are and where they came from. So for the quality indicator of administrative requirements, we did find, and what she did, we had an expert working with us to analyze the site visit studies. She was an expert in qualitative research, excellent. And what she did, or what they did, she had a team, was look at 139 of the programs that did not meet approval. So there were a number of programs, and what we were looking for is what does it look like in those programs where they, you know, don't meet approval. And so these are some of the things that came from that. There was no criteria for progression of performance. The policies were only done by higher administration. We also found that, and we recommend that in an RN program, the program director be doctorally prepared. Now you can see we've had some pushback with that, particularly with our ADN programs, but that's what the evidence shows. And then with LPN programs and VN programs, which you have, graduate degrees in nursing. And then more than 3 directors or director turnover in 5 years was really a problem with some of those schools with lower outcomes. So again, that is a quality indicator. Next slide, please. And then we looked at faculty. There are a lot of quality indicators with faculty. I don't know, some of you are faculty, but you probably know that if you are. One of the best findings, I thought, was that 35% or more of faculty should be full-time. Now, maybe you think, oh my gosh, I would have thought it was more than that. I sure thought that, having been in education. And I thought maybe as we get more consistent data with our annual reports, you know, that'll increase. You know what we found? We have found that some schools have like 10% full-time faculty, 19% full-time faculty. The 35% isn't met by a lot of schools. And I have to say that really did surprise me. And then faculty from an RN program should have a graduate degree and a BS and degree for LPN or VN programs. And then education in curriculum development came out very strong for faculty. So when boards are going out and looking, you know, at approval of nursing programs, they really need to consider this. And these are just some of the areas here that should be looked at, you know, that faculty know about clinical settings, simulation settings, that they know about the methods of instruction that they should be doing and how to manage those difficult students, test writing, those kinds of things. One of the things that they found in our site visit study was that sometimes faculty just didn't even know how to write an objective. You know, they're supposed to be in charge of the curriculum. They didn't even know how to write an objective. Now think about a school that has 10% full-time faculty, and so many of those faculty didn't even know how to work with the curriculum. So this is really very important to look at when boards of nursing are approving schools. Next slide, please. And so you can see continuing education is really very important for you to look at from the faculty saying what they do. The school should provide those workshops, formal mentoring, full-time, part-time faculty, but also orientation of adjunct faculty. Now, as you know, we have an annual report program, and we're finding that in the annual report program, most of the schools say they do formal orientation. And having been a faculty member, I think what they're saying is they gave donuts and coffee at the end and said thank you. But really, the faculty that are adjunct need to know about the curriculum, need to know the mission, the course that they're teaching in, so that they can be a part of, you know, teaching those students. And then another thing we found, and we had some of the people that we consulted with that verified this, is that sometimes faculty go in and don't have recent experience in patient care. And they really think that they can rely on the staff nurses to be doing the teaching, but they really can't in many places. So this is another thing you should look at very strongly. And honestly, I think it needs to be in the last 1 year rather than 5 years. Simulation faculty being certified is something that you can look at in the future. We have found that this isn't the case with a lot of faculty, but it's something you can encourage in your schools. Okay, next slide, please. And then one of the things that we're finding is that English as a second language resources are not available to students. So more of this needs to be available. Students with learning disabilities need assistance. And then books and resources in place. We did find in the site visit study that sometimes the students didn't have any, they didn't have the money to buy books, so they didn't have the access to buy books and resources. And this is something that the School of Nursing can certainly help them with. Maybe not money-wise, but you know, how to get those resources. And then remediation, we're finding in our annual report study that the academic problems sometimes students don't have any remediation for, and definitely for errors and near misses that are made in clinical. Only about half of the programs had anything with that. And you know, that is so important, particularly for nursing regulation. Next slide, please. And then in terms of quality indicators, 50% or more clinical experiences should be direct patient care. And to be honest, I thought, okay, this is going to be one area that schools don't meet. But I was totally wrong. Most of the schools actually don't have much simulation. And we've seen that from our annual report study, our annual report program, which, you know, we have a lot of schools involved in that. We have 31 boards of nursing, and it's all their schools that are involved. And, you know, we're seeing that most of them don't have very much simulation. They have 80 to 90% clinical experiences with direct patient care. So that one is met, but simulation can be helpful too in just preparing the students for clinical or for things that you don't see often in the clinical. Variety of clinical settings and diverse patients, very important. And looking at quality and safety. Quality and safety, things such as delegation. We see new graduates just don't have a lot of either experience or learning in delegation, interprofessional communication, time management, those kinds of things. And then a systematic evaluation of the curriculum. We do have that on our annual report survey, and we're finding that almost all schools say yes, and I think they're afraid if they say no, that, you know, the Board of Nursing will come back at them. So I think what we will be asking in the future is, what do you do for a systematic evaluation of the curriculum? Next slide, please. Teaching and learning resources. Remember I said not many of the faculty are certified for simulation. Well, even fewer of the simulation labs are accredited. There is an accreditor that we have on our annual report that it really charges a fair amount of money. So there's a new one that has come out from an Axel, which is recognizing a simulation lab for being appropriate, not as expensive, and we do think more programs will begin to meet it with that. Students having access to resources, and then being able to assess learning disabilities and tailor the curriculum to meet those needs. Next slide, please. Warning signs, complaints from students, faculty, clinical sites, or even the public. And I'm sure that you do receive some of these complaints. A very big warning sign, as we found with our site visit study. And then we don't have a number for faculty turnover, and probably during the pandemic it wouldn't have been all that reliable anyway, but looking in the future at faculty turnover, and it would be really nice to have a percentage like we do for you know, full-time faculty. Decreasing trends of NCLEX pass rates. There really is no research out there to say a specific pass rate is right. So we're looking at 5 years of trending of the pass rates. And then pre-licensure programs less than 7 years old. It's not that they're all failing programs, but that they need to have more oversight because some of them start and don't quite know what they're doing. Next slide, please. So, you know, we have our annual report program. So what we do in terms of using the quality indicators is put that into our survey. The annual reports are, you know, as you know, part of the approval process, at least in most boards of nursing. And so we do collect the data for the boards of nursing, and any additional questions besides our core questions. Our core questions are either demographic questions or questions based on the quality indicators. So those questions are asked the same across all nursing programs and boards of nursing, so that we're hoping to establish down the line the first ever nursing education database. And then we analyze that core data in an aggregate report so that you as a board of nursing can benchmark what your programs are doing, and the programs themselves, they know how they answered, they have their PDF of it, they can benchmark according to national data. Next slide, please. So this is what this is what the boards of nursing get, those that participate in our program, and we'd love to see your board participating. So at the very end of the report is a summary of those programs, and this is an actual summary, but the program name is not at the side, not meeting the quality indicators, so that you can, see when you see 3 or 4 that aren't met, you might want to go and have a talk with that particular school. Next slide, please. So this is a report of our aggregate data from 2021. You can see we had 843 nursing programs as a part of it. So a lot of data here, and this will just continue to increase as more boards of nursing do participate. In this one, there are only 20 that were participating our first year. Now we have 31, and we have many more that are coming in. Next slide, please. So this is just an idea of what came from the aggregate data. You can see it's really nice that LPN and VN programs do serve that rural community. And I think that's really important. Next slide, please. And then also you can see here all of the programs and all of the areas. Look at no English as a second language services. So again, that's really important to consider. Next slide, please. And then clinical hours. We have found, and you can see here, we looked from 2010, although we don't have data from then for LPN, VN programs, 2017, and then 2020, 21, and that's from the aggregate data. The 2010 and 17 are from simulation studies that our research department did. You can see how the clinical hours have decreased. And I realize there was a pandemic, but we did ask on our survey that typically what are they, and don't consider the hours during the pandemic. You can see that we are not as many hours as Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, Canada. This came from a study from Hungerford looking at looking at all of the English-speaking countries in terms of clinical hours. And it's something that it would be really nice down the line to have a minimum number of clinical hours that boards could look at, and we could look at even internationally. Next slide, please. So these are just some of the other key quality indicators. I didn't put them all on, but I wanted to show you LPN and VN. You can see that only 17% are credited, at least in our aggregate data. So this is something that is really important, I think, for the LPN and VN programs. You can also see that approval status is pretty good. And we often hear from educators, the boards of nursing are so hard on us, but, we can now just show them these data, just about 10% or so. And you can see with LPN and VN, it's just about 5% that don't reach approval. Major organizational changes would be, suddenly they decided to decrease the faculty, the administration did, and merge programs together. And again, there was quite a few that had difficulty in this area. And again, it is a quality indicator that came out in the evidence. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of a summary of what the aggregate results showed us, that we need more time for clinical experiences. Director turnover is a concern. More simulation faculty should be certified and the centers accredited. That's probably a lower concern, but definitely more resources for English as a second language, accreditation for LPN and VN programs. The 35% of faculty being full-time, that is something that, you know, the Board of Nursing can look at in those aggregate reports compared to each of the school's reports and go back to the school on that. Graduation rates were not the 70% that the U.S. Department of Education and the accreditors want. Now, I will tell you that did not come out as a quality indicator in our research. We are continuing to do research with our annual report, and I think it will down the line. I don't know if it'll be 70%, but I do think graduation rates will come out. Next slide, please. So this is actually my last slide. I give you a little time for some questions. Good. So I know that Jim talked about our ICRS program, our International Center for Regulatory Scholarship, and he told you about a lot of the courses that are available. But in the area of education, there is the Cracking the Code of Nursing Education Approval course. And this is something particularly that new education consultants might want to take. It will be offered again next spring. And, you know, we have a lot of interviews in that course. We have a paper where the student will be then kind of doing an approval of a program. So there's a lot of activity. It has been, you know, really just an excellent course for students to be engaged, and engaged not only with NCSBN, but also with each other and learning about what some of the other boards do. So I really would recommend that course. The other thing that I will be working on this summer when I actually go back into the office, because I've been out for a bit because of an accident I had in December. I will be doing a course, and this will be an asynchronous course on the role of the education consultant. So the student will be able to take it on their own, and you know, it'll be something, again, especially for new or new-ish education consultants. So that's what I have for you today, and I'm certainly interested if you have any questions or comments about what I had to say.
Dr. Spector, thank you so much for coming and doing that great presentation. Very appreciated. So much of this rings true for me, having been a director. And I'm wondering, is there access to the study on the NCSBN website?
Right. The aggregate report from 2021 is on, we have a special area on the website for the annual report program, and it's off to the side on that in related resources. We are now working on the 21-22 aggregate report. So yes, it's available. And also the survey of the core questions is available on there too. So you could kind of look at it. What a lot of boards have done who have participated is gotten rid of their questions because we've asked the same questions, and maybe they just have a few additional questions that they want. But yeah, so there's a big area on our website about the annual report program, and that is available.
Thank you so much. I just have to put that one last plug in, that for me, it really shows that nursing education is a specialty, and that we need to recognize nurse educators as specialists advanced practice, because it certainly shows up in your report how important that is.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Any other questions from the board? Well, thank you so much. I really appreciated everything you had to say, and such an important topic, and definitely pertains to everything we do here at the board. So thank you very much for taking your time and coming to speak with us.
Well, thank you for allowing me to. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you, Nancy. I think we're moving a little bit out of order. Alicia asked that we move. Do what?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. No.
Alicia asked that we move next to Dr. Phil Dickinson. One of the things that when we were meeting with Elaine and talking about how we might be able to help you and some of the items that would be of interest to you, One of the things that rose to the top was your interest in NCLEX and the next generation NCLEX. And so we've got Phil Dickinson. He's our Chief Operating Officer for NCSBN and also the Chief Officer for Exams. So at this point in time, Phil, I'll turn it over to you. Although
Apologies, moderator, that's Pete Dickinson in the attendance.
Hey everyone, how are you?
It's kind of soft.
Soft? I'll get a little closer.
Can you hear it? Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
better. Yes.
All right, I'll do this right
A
here.
little louder. Yes.
All right, thanks, Alicia. I appreciate that. Welcome everyone, it's an honor to be here. I don't have wonderful slides, but Nancy, thank you. Those look really good. I just wanted to take actually a few minutes to give you an overview of our next generation NCLEX, and then spend most of the time answering any questions you may have, just so I know what your needs are and how we can help you. So April 1st, we actually launched what was called the next generation NCLEX. It's a project we've been working on for about 10 years, but really what is most important about that is that it incorporates a new measurement of clinical judgment or clinical decision making. It was launched on the 1st of April. We've actually administered over 25,000 exams under that now. The measurement model is working very well as we predicted. Really hasn't had a particular impact on pass rates, but we did spend 2 or 3 years going around to education programs. So one of the services that we do offer, and you'd have to work with the exam department for this, but it's actually putting on education webinars or seminars in person in state. You've had a couple of them. I don't know if the RN's had a couple of those, but there's certainly something I want you to know is available, and you can reach out to us to get those. The clinical judgment did a couple things. One, it added case studies back into the examination process instead of standalone questions. The idea was to get to fidelity, because multiple choice questions throughout the years, while they measure very, very well, don't really look like how we as nurses practice. And so we wanted to create a fidelity. So bringing case studies and how rolling cases, how decisions are made was really important to us. And it's worked very well up at this point. I would tell you, as part of the exam, though, you as the board, or at least the staff, the staff for the board have access to a lot of tools to do analysis, either on candidates and or programs. We call it our BI system, but we can answer a lot of questions for you. It just merely means you need to ask us. And the other part is being chief of operations. I also help with the regular operations around administration of the exams, complaints about the exams. We have a whole department for that. And I'm going to ask Alicia when this is done to make sure they have the direct connect to CX so they can get those questions in if they have them. Alicia, would you do that for me?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so I actually wanted this to be just merely an introduction and not waste your time with a prepared speech, but actually open it up for questions. So I actually can answer the questions that are most important to you, not the words that I have written down. So if I can, I don't know who's in charge, Alicia, but if we could open this up, I want to be able to ask any questions they have about the exam so I can focus this better, if you don't mind.
The moderator would handle that.
Okay, can we do?
Yes.
Great.
All right, this is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment on this item, please go ahead and click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests.
Great, thank you.
All right, seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. And I would just close out mine by saying, look, the offer is still here. If there are questions around the exam development, scoring, accommodations, any of that, all you need to do is be able to get a hold of the CX that Alicia will give you, and we will get you those answers. We're here to help you and want to make sure that we're serving you well. So I thank you for this opportunity. I hope we have many more. And again, I've been at meetings where you stop for questions. You don't have time to think about them. I'm sure after I leave, there will be some. So please make sure we get them, and we'll get those answers for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dickinson. So appreciate you being here and being willing to answer all the questions. And I've seen your presentation before on NextGen, and just appreciated all the information you have for us.
Great. Thank you.
All right, as we continue through the agenda that we prepared for you, I want to introduce you to Nicole Avanos. Nicole is the Director for State Affairs at NCSBN. Her department oversees a number of legislative campaigns for different advocacy programs at NCSBN, as well as working with the member boards to see how they can help with regulatory questions. If you've got questions about promulgation of rules, how something should be worded, or proposed legislation, Nicole and her team are always great resources and willing to help you out with any of that. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Nicole Avanos.
Thank you so much, Jim, for that introduction. And thank you, Elaine and Carol, and members of the board, for having us all here today. And I am happy to be here to provide a sort of backgrounder on state affairs and how the board can get in touch and what information we all have. We are here to help you out in navigating the sometimes complex, sometimes frustrating, and sometimes exciting world of legislative affairs. So if you could go to the next slide. Thank you so much. So just quickly, the topics that I'm going to cover in my presentation today include just an overview of the State Affairs Department, sort of where we fall within the NCSBN structure, our 3 advocacy campaigns, so we'll talk through those, some of the key legislative issues that we are always looking out for and making sure that our boards are informed about throughout session, but also sort of after session, so we're continuing the conversations about legislation throughout the year. I want to do a quick introduction to iTrack, and so I know Sarah is the moderator. Sarah, if it is possible at that point that I can share my screen and go to our iTrack website and do a quick demo, that would be appreciated. So just a heads up. If not, the link is in the PowerPoint and everyone can sort of explore on their own. And then last but not least, opportunities to engage with our small but mighty departments. So next slide, please. So the State Affairs Department falls within the Division of Nursing Regulation at NCSBN. And so on this call, to orient everybody to that, Jim, Alicia, and Nancy are all also a part of nursing regulation and our team. Within that, there's the Government Affairs Department, of which Jim is the director. And under that are the 3 areas of the Nurse Licensure Compact, Federal Affairs, and State Affairs. So obviously the difference between federal and state affairs would be that we deal at state affairs in state legislation. So we are working with state lawmakers at your capitals, and federal affairs is dealing more on the federal side with, Capitol Hill, the executive office, and related agencies. So next slide, please. Thank you. So within State Affairs, there is myself as director. We have 2 associates in our department, Molly Maeve Lusk. You may have seen her name on some emails, and we'll talk about those emails and how you can receive them in your inboxes to help keep you up to date on legislative issues, as well as Robert Krebs. Robert is a new, he's been here for about 2 months, so at some point I'll stop calling him new, but a new associate within our department. So we all work together on all of these issues, both our direct advocacy campaigns and then all of our sort of member-facing policy areas as well. So the priorities of the State Affairs Department, and these are not in any specific order, but they include our advocacy campaigns, which are the Nurse Licensure Compact, the Advanced Practice Registered Nurse, our APRN Compact, and our Nursing America campaign. We'll dive into what each of those are in a moment. We also prioritize engagement on bills of interest to boards of nursing. We partake in legislative tracking throughout the year and provide analysis, and also try, to the extent that you can, project what some of the trends might be for the legislative session, the upcoming legislative session, so that we make sure that we sort of have our hands on the buzzer and always ready to report out and project and make sure our boards are prepared for what might be coming ahead. And then finally, membership touch points. So we have several ways that we connect with members through email, through Policy Knowledge Networks, which is a quarterly call to hear updates on our campaigns, but also hear issues that are important and happening at boards that boards want to share with us, and then also relevant presentations and sort of skill workshops to build some of your legislative and advocacy tools. And then last but not least, the Leadership and Public Policy Conference, which is a bi-annual conference every other year, where we really hope to engage members, have them learn more about how to be better participants in advocacy and legislative issues at the state level, also how to build skills in leadership. And so that's a really great conference, and just would love to draw attention to it in this presentation as much as possible. So next slide, please. So an overview of our advocacy campaign. So as I mentioned, we have 3 campaigns, and they're sort of, here's the logos that are outlined for you. So the Nurse Licensure Compact is a compact that has been in existence for over 20 years. I'm sure many on the call are familiar with it, but just as a bit of background, it allows a RN or LPN to hold 1 license, which is issued in your primary state of residence. And you have the ability with that 1 license to practice in all of the states that are party to the compact. So the NLC has been around for over 20 years and currently has 40 jurisdictions that have enacted the legislation to join. So the way that a state would join the NLC is by passing a bill and enacting it into law in your state. It is essentially a contract. It's contractual in nature. So, California, if they were to pass the NLC, would be passing the same exact legislation that any of the other 40 jurisdictions passed, so that you would all be joining into the same compact, working together to facilitate licensure mobility across state lines, both for in-person nursing care as well as for telehealth, electronic, or telephonic care as well. And importantly, since Nancy's on the line as well, for nursing education across state lines. So that is the Nurse Licensure Compact campaign. Next is the APRN Compact, again for Advanced Practice Registered Nurses. This works identically to the Nurse Licensure Compact in that it allows APRNs to hold 1 license issued in their primary state of residence and practice across state lines, both in person and electronically delivering nursing services. The difference between the 2 is that the APRN Compact has not yet become effective. The APRN Compact was adopted by NCSBN membership, so all of the boards of nursing voted at the Delegate Assembly in August of 2020 to approve the final language for the APRN Compact. And so the APRN Compact was first introduced in the 2021 legislative session, and so far has 3 state enactments. We've had 7 introductions this session, which is very encouraging, and we hope that the compact will reach its threshold of 7 state enactments, which is needed for it to come into effect. So the last campaign actually is sort of a feeder campaign into the APRN Compact. The Nursing America campaign looks to align states with the consensus model for APRN regulation. And that consensus model is the national model for regulation and practice of APRNs. So it looks to standardize the way that APRNs are regulated and their practice across the states, as well as removing any unnecessary barriers to APRN care that are not founded in public safety. So the Nursing America campaign is focused on helping states align with the model. And so that is one of our key campaigns as well. What our advocacy campaigns really mean? Like, what does it mean if NCSBN is engaged in an advocacy campaign on the Nurse Licensure Compact? What that means is that we are working intimately with the Board of Nursing, with stakeholders in the state, with lawmakers in the state, in order to advance these bills and hopefully lead to their enactment. From NCSBN's side, we hire a lobbyist to represent NCSBN that's local, because of course it's important to have a lobbyist that's local to the state in which you're trying to advance legislation. They have the right connections, and NCSBN looks to make strategic hiring decisions there to best advance our issues. So in our advocacy campaign states, there's a lot more direct advocacy work that the State Affairs Group is doing. So you can move on to the next slide, please. All right, so some key legislative issues, and just for reference, this is the Illinois State Capitol photo. I'm a state capitol nerd, and so I love the different architecture of the capitals, and this one is a particularly beautiful one, I think. So our key legislative issues that we focus on, and this means that we are tracking legislation that relates to these issues across the states. We are always, of course, looking at any changes or shifts to the Board of Nursing, their structure, how they operate, the powers that they have, et cetera. Occupational licensure trends. So as you probably know, California is not immune to these pieces of legislation and policy trends. There are a lot of bills out there and a lot of stakeholder entities whose mission it is to reduce regulation, reduce what they may feel is unnecessary duplicative regulation, and also look to deteriorate the current structure of how professions are regulated throughout the state. One of the things that we especially highlight on is, to make sure that we are spotting bills that are trying to make a one-size-fits-all solution that goes across multiple professions, meaning it doesn't have different, there aren't different processes for looking at how you might regulate healthcare professions, which of course have a greater nexus to public protection than you may some of the other professions or trades. So we look to identify those and make sure that boards of nursing are armed with talking points to participate in the legislative process to the extent that they can, and express and have the tools ready in case they are called upon for their advice, and just be part of the conversation. We also, of course, are looking at compacts. Nursing is not unique to having interstate compacts. There are many professions and a growing number of professions that are looking at compacts. And so it's important for us to keep an eye on what other professions are doing, how their compacts are structured, the status of where their compacts are at. As an example, there were several new compacts out this session. And so when we especially have a compact running in a state, let's say as Washington, it's important for us to know what other compacts is the legislature also considering, and how might that impact our efforts, and how might that benefit or harm our efforts in the state. So just to highlight real quick some of the trending issues that we are looking at. So these are some of the trending issues from, I would say, the 2022 and 2023 legislative sessions. States have a particular interest and eye on reproductive health care policy. looking at healthcare assistive personnel, the growth, the new personnel within this category, how they're being regulated, who is regulating them. Certainly many boards of nursing regulate professions that are non-nursing professions. And so keeping an eye on what the trends are is very important. As an example, certified midwives is a group that are being regulated more and more by boards of nursing across the country. It is a new trend to create this regulatory structure for them, but we're seeing that that is being picked up and duplicated across states. Definitely keeping an eye on the workforce in addition to the great work that our research department does on the National Workforce Survey. We also are keeping an eye on what the policy ideas are out there, what bills are running that are looking to address the nursing workforce shortage. Telehealth, it's a growing industry, so we keep an eye on that. Who can provide these services? What coverage is there for these services? Importantly, what does the bill say about the location of practice and the scope of practice that must be followed? Is it the state where the patient's located? Is it the state where the provider is located? Those are things that we look for when we're analyzing telehealth bills. Looking at nursing program standards, everything that Nancy just talked about, looking for those keywords in legislation to make sure that we're keeping an eye at when a state might be looking to reduce the number of full-time faculty needed for nursing program approval, or make any other of those changes, just to keep an eye on that, and again, provide boards of nursing with resources if they're needed. And then student licensure qualifications as well, and looking at apprenticeship programs and all of those things as well are sort of a hot topic that we've been tracking over this session and 2022 as well. So next slide, please. So this is where I would like to, and Sarah, let me know if it's possible for me to share my screen to go to our iTrack resource.
All right, I gave presenter rights to you, so you'll just need to click share down at the bottom of WebEx and then share screen.
Perfect.
And then just make sure you don't have any emails or messages open.
I did diligently close my email, so thank you for that. So hopefully you all can see my screen right now. This is a member service. So for the board members on the call and for Elaine and staff, this is a member service that you're able to access by signing in with your credentials on the NCSBN website. This would be located, iTrack, under policy and government, and then state advocacy. And you'll see the little lock symbol there. That just means that you need to log in order to access this. And this is a really interesting tool, and it really is sort of like a build your own adventure. You can go as far and deep into this resource as you want, or you can just look for high level information as well. What this does is take the information that State Affairs tracks and turns it, and this is the member facing side of that, so you can access what we're looking at. So I am going to select a topic here, and I will select LPNs or LVNs, and then we will just, first of all, we'll click display and see that currently we have 46 pending bills that we're tracking, 10 have been enacted, and 9 have failed that are dealing with LPNs and LVNs. And so if we further go into see, hey, what failed? You know, what was out there as a proposed bill in the state, but didn't make it all the way this session. So I will just pick on Mississippi here and click on Mississippi. And here you can see that there were 2 bills that we were tracking. First, that looked at physicians' free speech discrimination. You'll see under the issue here that LVNs, LPNs are a tag that was used, meaning that when we reviewed the bill, we found that there were areas that were of interest to LPNs and LVNs. And so we tagged that issue to make sure that if that bill were to be enacted, that we'd be able to articulate and alert our boards as to its enactment and how it may impact LPNs and LVNs in Mississippi. More directly, you'll see that the second bill here is tagged as LPVN and nursing scope of practice. So this bill, unlike the one above it, which has many tags, this one is likely more tailored to to LPNs and LVNs and a key issue for them. So under this bill, you can see first what our tracking system provides. So the author of the bill, the title, its introduction, disposition, and a summary. This first summary that you see, importantly, is the summary that's provided by the tracking service. While great at times, it can also miss really the key issues that we're concerned about in the bill or want to draw attention to. So I'd encourage you that you look to the issue or the section down here called My Summary. And when you read My Summary, that one is generated by the State Affairs staff. And so again, it's going to just be a little bit more tailored. This bill might be 200 pages. And so we want to really pull out the important information. So you'll see here that this legislation related to medication aids and provided that an RN or LPN whose license has been revoked, suspended, or voluntarily surrendered may not register as a medication aid. So you just see a quick synopsis of what that bill was, and should you be inclined to read more about it because, hey, you heard of that California may be introducing a similar bill. What does the Mississippi bill look like? You can click on that bill and you can find out more, including you can read the introduced version of the bill. We see that it's 10 pages, so hopefully you should be able to get through that and understand a little bit more about that bill. So iTrack is, again, is a tool for members to use and to have at your fingertips. But if you dive into here and find a bill and you want to know more about it, you want to know if it's being introduced across multiple states or is this something unique to Mississippi or Kansas or whomever, just contact our state affairs team. We're happy to put together a sort of a synopsis, a state of the states on that issue in particular, and we'll try and dive in and find out what stakeholders are even behind that bill and get you the most relevant information possible. So I will stop my screen share and come back to the PowerPoint. Thank you so much, Sarah. If you could go to the next slide. All right, so we'll move into opportunities to engage with state affairs. So we have a newsletter that goes out bi-weekly during session weeks. That's called Compact Connection. As you can imagine, it is news, the latest and greatest, and information and resources about the Nurse Licensure Compact and the APRN Compact. This is a public-facing newsletter, so members and the public alike can subscribe to get this newsletter. It includes things such as if we've recently been presenting at a state and that is available in public stream, we will include the link to it. You might find that if you're having a hearing on the NLC or APRN Compact, that you might want to look at what types of stakeholders were involved in the state, what types of questions were asked from lawmakers. And so we'll provide those types of links to you, as well as any new stakeholder partners that we get on board with supporting the compacts. We'll highlight them, talk a little bit about the backgrounder there and their reasons for supporting the bill. So those types of resources would be located there. We also have our Policy Knowledge Network. As I mentioned, this is member only facing. It's held quarterly, and it's a call that we encourage participation on and hope to bring relevant presentations and also updates across our 3 campaigns. As I mentioned, the Leadership in Public Policy Conference is every other year. I think it is a highly anticipated conference for many members, so I encourage you to check it out. We typically have a lot of presenters, whether it be lawmakers, whether it be professors and of policy or negotiation experts, to come and do a series of workshops or presentations or panel opportunities to really, again, build your skills in policy and legislative affairs, and hopefully build your skills in leadership as well. And then finally, you might have seen me already, or you may see me in the future. Our State Affairs team does presentations at the NLC Commission meetings, at the mid-year meeting for our legislative update that we do annually, and then on other calls, President Knowledge Networks, EO calls as well. So those are sort of where you'll see us. And then if you could go to the next slide, please. Last but not least, because you'll have access to this website, I wanted you to have access to links to a lot of what we just talked about. Importantly, the Policy Knowledge Network, if you'd like to be included in the mailing list for that, you can email Molly Mae Lusk, that is her email address there, to add yourself or your colleagues, your member colleagues, I should say, NCSBN member colleagues, to the Knowledge Network. We're also making it self-assignable, so within Passport, you should be able to do that yourself. That will hopefully be, that change will be made shortly. For Compact Connection, you can subscribe for those biweekly emails. There's a link to do that right there. And then for general state affairs questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team. We're here for you and to provide any resources, and no question is a silly question. We really welcome any and all, and promise you that you're not the first to ask these questions. And that's part of the ability for the state affairs team, is to look at what's going on around the country. And so many of these issues that you are experiencing in California are being experienced across at least one, but probably more states. So we're hoping to help be that, that resource for you to navigate those issues. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming and sharing with us. I'm not sure if there's any questions from the board, but I just want to say what a great presentation that was.
Thank you so much, Carol. Thank you for the opportunity.
So I think that concludes the information that we had prepared for the board today. Again, I'd like to tell you how much we appreciate the opportunity to be included on your agenda. I know how precious the time is, especially considering the number of issues that you have before you. And so we really appreciate you inviting us. One of the words that stood out to me as Nicole was giving her presentation was engagement. And that's really the goal of us being here today. We want to engage you. We want to make sure you know that we're here to make your job easier. I know there were a number of times when I was at the Georgia Board of Nursing, when we were looking for a way to accomplish something or an idea, and we really were trying to avoid having to recreate the wheel. And it was so nice to be able to go to National Council and say, hey, have you got an idea? Have you got a connection? Be able to reach out amongst the other EOs or among the other board presidents. And so I hope you'll take advantage of that relationship, that you'll see us as the go-to, as the lifeline for the regulator. If there's anything that we can do, if you have any questions based on any of the information that was presented today, or if there's something that perhaps you didn't hear about that you're wondering if we have a resource for, please don't hesitate to reach out to Alicia or myself or any of the other presenters that you've heard from today. We would love to be able to assist you as you carry out the important work of protecting the public in your jurisdiction. Again, Carol, Elaine, thank you so much for having us today. If there's anything we can do for you, please let us know.
Thank you so much to NCSBN for being willing to take your time and come and share with our board. We really appreciate it. Any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing no additional questions, we will take a 10-minute break, a 12-minute break, and we will reconvene at 10 minutes to 11. And we will, thank you so much for putting the record on. We will resume our meeting with item number 7, education reports. And I will turn it over to Ms. DeYoung at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Mountain. Good morning, everyone. This is Beth DeYoung, Supervising Nursing Education Consultant. I would like to start with welcoming our new board member, Gloria Guzman. Welcome to the BBNPT. And then going into a few updates from the Education Division. I am very happy to say that the Education Division is now fully staffed, and that is after filling the 3 vacancies. We're really excited they've joined our team, and actually they all started in April. So we have Nicholas Gonzalez, our AGPA, Roberta Thompson, our NEC, and Mary Bridget Barrett, who prefers Bridget Barrett, also an NEC. So I do appreciate having a full team and especially the exceptional work that they all do. So on April 29th, Dr. Mountain, Elaine Yamaguchi, and myself, we presented at the CVNE, which is the California VN Educators Spring Conference, and we really enjoyed being there and being a part of the conference. We do appreciate the invite, and we had some great discussions with all the attendees as well. So that was a really nice time. We held the Spring 2023 Online Director Forum on May 3rd via WebEx. We had 135 directors or designee attend, and the forum was a one-day forum, and we had exceptional presenters. We offered breakout rooms for networking, and there were very good discussions held during the Q&A sessions. So we appreciate everyone who presented and also those who attended. And I also wanted to give a quick thank you to Solid for their assistance with the forum as well. That ends my updates, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There are no questions. Ms. Yamaguchi, what should be next on our agenda? I'm not sure here. I have review and approval of executive officer program decision for period of January 3 to April 3, 2023 from the Education Division.
Correct, Madam Chair. That report was included in the regular action item to ratify the decisions that come directly to the executive officer. They're very simple general approvals of request to admit students, things like that. So that very, very long list that was included in the packet is what the staff had been working on between January 3 and April 3. And it is an action item for the board.
Should we go ahead and ask for a discussion or questions for that?
Generally speaking, you ask for a motion to put it on the floor and then for discussion among the board and then public comment.
All right. Do we have a motion and a second to approve and ratify the executive officer program decisions for the period of January 3, 2023 to April 3, 2023?
Madam President, John Dearkin would second.
This is Ken Maxey. I'll second that.
Thank you so much. Do we have any discussion or questions from the board? Seeing none, can we open it for public comment, please?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
I would, thank you so much. I will now do a roll call vote and establish who's in favor, opposed, or abstains. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter? Ms. Carpenter? We'll come back. Mr. Durking?
Yes, in favor.
Ms. Guzman?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Lessie? Ms. Moore, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Ms. Nieblas, was she able to join us? Okay. Ms. Sonson?
Yes.
Thank you. Carol Mountain, I also vote yes. That's carried by.
You want to go back to Ms. Carpenter, Madam Chair?
Yes. Ms. Carpenter, are you able to vote?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. That is carried by a vote of 9. All right. We will move on to B, which is a request to admit students. And that will be Miss, I don't want to mispronounce your name, Devilia? Devilia? Is she here? Yes.
This is a moderator. Tara, it looks like your microphone was unmuted a second ago, but we couldn't hear any audio. Do you want to try muting and unmuting again? Uh-oh, still not hearing any audio. Let me get some instructions up on the screen on how to switch your audio. Oh, I actually don't have those instructions uploaded right now. So if you go up to the top of your WebEx screen where it says audio and video, and there should be a button that says switch audio. If you click that, it'll give you an option to call in on your phone, and that'll connect your phone audio to the WebEx. Additionally, if that doesn't work, you can also try logging out and logging back in again.
Is my mic on now? Can you hear me?
Oh, now we can hear you. Great.
Okay, wonderful. I'm not too sure what's going on there. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
So to the board, you have my report. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Were there any questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion and a second to approve and accept the NEC's report?
John Deere will so move and adopt the recommendations.
Alita Carpenter, a second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions from the board? Seeing no discussion, any public comment, and is there a representative from the school here?
This is the moderator. I promoted Jaime Ramos up to a panelist who is the representative from the school. Jaime, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair and the board members. I agree with the part of the bill as the recommendation to not to admit 24 students. I just want you to know that because she wants us to have the opportunity to look into our program, to our faculty who's not going to be teaching, to look deeply and actually find and apply on the different strategies for us to turn this program around and increase our passing scores. And so and we're taking the recommendation very seriously. We already asked for a grant through the Strong Force and Perkins 200 hours for the for us to sit down and really look into it and do what is called a systematic evaluation of our instructional plan. And the faculty are going to be meeting and looking into it and turning things around, which we already have set up strategies, and we just need time to get them applied. and then to start seeing the results. We're seeing them a little slower than we would want to. Results are picking up, but still, there's a lot of work to do. And I'm just like to have the opportunity for the board, as I agree with this Mr. Tardevilla. But if we're allowed to admit a smaller cohort, one that we can start to implement all these strategies, and we can see how things are working, are going to be working on, and we can give them the opportunity to increase our passing scores. And that's one thing. Another one is it is so difficult to obtain and to maintain clinical sites, especially in the nursing area, as you all know. And we just want the opportunity, if we can be allowed to bring not 24 students, but probably 24 students, for us this will allow us to still have faculty set aside to work in our instructional plan, to do the systematic evaluation of the instructional plan, and also being able to continue the instruction with the less students and maintain our clinical sites. And we're going to have one of the main reasons here it has been, you probably saw the report already from very well noted from Tarantaville, but it's just getting students to take the state board exam as close to program completion as possible. So we're going to dedicate two faculty to continue. I mean, we just need to go the step forward, maybe sending written letters. I don't know if we should go there and knock on doors and say, hey, you need to take the state board exam, because we noticed that the moment they take it as close to a program completion, we have a higher the high results, which meet the board demands. However, the outliers, I'll take it 6 months later, they continue to downgrade our scores. So we will have the opportunity to, we're working on the objectives. Every single objective is going to be scrutinized, clinical and theory. We need to make sure that the knowledge of the psychics must have, because as you saw in the report, some of our graduates were saying that pharmacology and the leadership area was not being really covered well in the program. So we're making all those our strength. And so I will kindly ask the board if they will honor us with admitting a smaller cohort, so we can start building our strategies. A cohort of 12 students to start on the 21st of August 2023, for them to, with a graduation date of December 5th, 2024.
Thank you so much for those comments. We appreciate them. Any other comments?
Can I just mention that I will be working closely with the program, and that my report stands as submitted, but I will work with Jaime, and the program will be evaluated again during the August board meeting.
Madam
Thank you for that
President,
additional
John Dierking,
information.
just a question for clarification. So it appears that the rep from the school otherwise agrees with the NEC's recommendations on this?
Yes, I not to admit 24 students. I do agree with that, and so a cohort of 12 students is my request.
Okay, if I may inquire of the NEC, Madam President, is that something that could be accommodated under your recommendation?
So bringing a smaller cohort of 12 students for an admission date of August. My report will still stand as submitted with this request. But I will be continuing to work with the board, with the director, and have them reevaluated in August. So my report stands as submitted.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members, if I could actually clarify, this is Elaine. When NEC Davila is replying that her report does stand, this is not contradicting what the program representative was just saying. So basically, this report is authorizing to admit up to 24 students. And if the program itself chooses to admit a smaller cohort, that is absolutely their option. And Ms. Davila, of course, is going to be working very closely with them to be working to move that cohort along and to make the changes and the developments that the report calls for. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for that clarification. That really helped. All right, any other questions from the board? All right. Seeing none, I will do a roll call and establish who's in favor, opposed, or abstains. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter?
I just wanted to add, should we ask for any comments from the public?
We did originally ask for comments from the public, and that's when the representative from the school spoke.
Okay, thank you. So there's no other further comments then?
We have not had any hands raised.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Ms. Guzman?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
I don't believe Ms. Niebles is on. Ms. Sonson?
Yes.
And I'm Carol Mountain. I vote yes. That carries by a vote of 9. All right, moving on to Downey Adult School Vocational Nursing Program. Dr. Fairchild.
Good morning, Dr. Mountain. You have my report, and do you have any questions?
All right, is there a motion and a second to approve and accept the NEC's report?
Alita Carpenter, so moved.
Thank you.
John Deerking will second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions from the board? Seeing no questions from the board, could we open for public comment, please? Or is there a representative from the school who would like to speak?
This is a moderator. I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. I also have our representative, Marianne Pacheco. Marianne, I'm going to request to unmute your microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, just making sure. I agree with the report, and also I want to give a shout out and a thank you to my NEC, Ms. Fairchild. We've been working together on a lot of things, and I can't say enough about her hard work and her hard effort of everything she's done for our school. So I do want to thank her for everything.
Thank you so much for speaking. Are there any other comments from the public?
This is the moderator. Appears there are no further requests. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
I would. Thank you so much. I will do a roll call and establish who's in favor, opposed, or abstains. Ms. Brown,
In favor.
Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Durking,
Yes.
Ms. Guzman,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Maxey,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Sonson.
Yes.
I'm Carol Mountain. I also vote yes. It carries by a vote of 9. All right, we will move on to the University of Antelope Valley Vocational Nursing Program. Ms. Della Rosa.
Good morning. You have my report to approve the University of Antelope Valley's request to admit. I would be happy to answer any question.
Seeing no questions from the board at this time, can I have a motion and a second to approve and accept the NEC's report?
John Durkin will so move.
Alita Carpenter, second.
Is there any discussion or questions regarding this report? Seeing no discussion, no hands raised, could we please open for public comment or comment from a representative from the school?
This is a moderator. I opened up the Q&A feature for public comment, and then I also have Ahila Mutayaya as a representative. Ahila, I'm going to go ahead and request to unmute your microphone.
Mahila Mutaya, I'm the Director of Nursing at UAV, and I have no additional comments, and I accept all the recommendations from the NEC. And I also want to appreciate her support and her help. She's always there when I have a quick question, and I am so grateful for that. Thank you, Ms. De La Rosa, and I have no further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other comments from the public that you see?
This is a moderator. I see no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
I would. Thank you so much. All right, I will do a roll call and establish who is in favor, opposed, or abstains. Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Durkin.
Yes.
Ms. Guzman.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Mr. Maxey. Mr. Maxey.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Ms. Sonson.
Yes.
And I'm Carol Mountain. I vote yes. That carries by a motion of 9. Now we will move on to the reconsideration of provisional approval request to admit students. This is Integrity College of Health Vocational Nursing Program. Ms. Gomez, is there any new or additional information to your report?
No, my report stands as submitted. Do you have any questions?
Seeing no questions, can I have a motion to approve the report and adopt the recommendations and a second?
John Durkin will so move.
Alita Carpenter, second.
Thank you. Any board discussion or questions? Seeing no hands raised, could we please open for any public comment, or if the school is here and would like to make a comment?
This is a moderator. At the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. And it looks like I have a hand raised from Alice Sorrell Thompson. I'm not sure if they are the representative, but I'll request to unmute anyways.
I am the representative from Integrity College of
Thank you.
Health. And we agree with the recommendations of our NEC.
And I would like to say that we are grateful for the structure that has been provided for us, the support that has been provided for us. We are looking forward to moving higher and being able to support the building of the Healthcare Foundation here in California. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. At this time, I will take a roll call vote to see who is in favor, opposed, or abstains. Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Durking,
Yes.
Ms. Guzman,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Maxey. Mr. Maxey? We'll come back to Mr. Maxey.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Sansan,
Yes.
I'm Carol Mountain, and I also vote yes. That motion is carried by a vote of 9. I believe we're ready to move on to agenda item 8, which is the executive officer's report. Ms. Yamaguchi.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. And wow, what a lot of information being kind of released through the spillway for you today and yesterday. So I don't want to belabor it much in terms of the written report, but I did want to call out a couple of things. One being about SB 544 that Mr. Clifford had talked about a bit earlier. As he pointed out, the bill is moving very, very quickly. It's already moved to the second house, and it doesn't have a fiscal impact on the bill. So it is going to move very quickly. But as Mr. Clifford pointed out, it doesn't have the urgency clause, and that might be a yet, which means that even if it is moved as quickly as it seems to be going, the effective date would be January 1. I do want the board to know that because my staff is so much more smart than I am, we have of course already moved and booked a physical room for the August board meeting just in case. So I think it's probably fair for the board to know that we'll certainly be keeping you all posted, but I think you might want to plan for an in-person meeting in August, and it'll be up here in Sacramento. So I do want people to be aware of that and ready, but like I said, we will certainly be keeping everybody posted on that. The other bill that I want to mention, and this is a very recent development. I think most of the board who were on board last year will remember that we had asked for a minor technical correction to the Sunset Bill 1536 that had been passed in 21. And this is a very, very minor technical correction with regard to some of the language, with regard to the way that the community colleges could request a decrease or a waiver of their continuing approval fee if the state budget had impacted them so much so that they were forced to reduce their capacity. So that language was finally, and I have to add great appreciation to the Senate and Assembly policy staff. They've added that to SB 816, which is being carried by Chairman Roth. Just that quick technical language. There is a little bit of a tinkering that we do hope to ask them for, but beyond that, this is language that the board did support us asking for last year. So moving right ahead, this, by the way, was language that the Office of Administrative Law specifically directed us to request. So our regulations, oddly enough, our regulations are consistent with this, but we want to make certain that the statute reflects that. So that's really good news, and we'll be moving forward on that. Keep you posted on that as quickly as we can. It is also on Senate third reading. It's not a fiscal bill. So because it's been receiving, like most technical bills, it's a strongly bipartisan bill. We don't expect to see any problems with it moving forward. The other thing I wanted to actually what I wanted to discuss with the board most is, of course, the sunset review coming up. It does seem like it was only yesterday. For the newer members, I might be mistaken, but I don't think the actual report is available on our website because it was so enormous we could not recreate it in the ADA compatible format. But I can certainly make it available to folks individually. But what I want to make sure we know, but the hearing, by the way, is available on our website, and it's a good fun to watch. But anyways, all fun aside, the sunset review is a really important aspect to our work. It basically is the legislature's opportunity to review what we've done over the past several years and judge whether or not that we should continue to be the regulatory authority over our licensees. So our sunset report is due, we'll be preparing it this year. In all likelihood, it will be due to the legislature either the very, very end of this year or very, very early in 24. Over the course of probably the next 5-6 months, the board and the board's committees will probably see pieces of it. The board itself will see drafts at least twice because the board must approve the final version of it before it goes to the legislature. We're hoping to have a very engaged process this year. We'd love for the board members to be as engaged as possible. We'd like for our stakeholders to participate and provide some feedback. And we'd love for our stakeholders, our board members to be at the hearing and provide some comments, suggestions, and not to be needy or anything, some kind words about the work that the board has done over the past couple of years. I believe that this board has done a vast amount of excellent work since 2018 in general, but this past period when after our most recent sunset, the board and the staff have worked assiduously, tirelessly, and I have nothing but great things to say. So, like I said, the sunset process will be moving. So, as I said, the report will be moving out, end of the year, beginning of 24. We would anticipate our hearing to be most likely mid to late March of 24. And that's when they would probably be putting together our next legislative bill that would reauthorize us. As I think we have a number of policy issues that we're possibly interested in pursuing via that bill as well. So it's just getting started. The executive staff and I have talked about this a bit. We're about to kind of parse out the pieces, but I'd like to, as I said, any questions, any comments, we want this to be as involved a process as we can. And just one last thing, and I did want to thank our colleagues from NCSBN who probably left by now, but what a great amount of information. And I'm so excited to have so much support and interest in what we're doing. I think the board may or may not know, but we're one of only a handful of states that have 2 licensing boards. Most of the states just have one board that covers both the RNs and the LVNs. So this is interesting, and it's also, of course, part and parcel of the fact that we have way more nurses than any other state. Between, our licensing population is somewhere in the 140,000 mark, and that's about probably 10%, 10 to 12% of the nation's total. So the interesting, what I wanted to say is NCSBN does have a vast amount of really valuable information on their website. So if you do want to set up that passport account that Ms. Bird was talking about, you can certainly do that, but through them. But it's probably going to be a lot easier if you contact our office, and we would be able to put together your account and walk you through getting logged on. But I will warn you, of course, that yeah, if you don't log on at least once every 90 days, it freezes you, it deactivates you, and you will have to call back and say, okay, can you reactivate me, please? But there's like I said, a huge amount of information, and interestingly, those training opportunities are terrific. But just as a footnote, Miss Lavanos's discussion was super interesting. I did want to mention though that the very, very small flaw in NCSBN, of course, is that as they represent all of the jurisdictions in this country and work with actually other countries as well, I think the board knows that California has a very, very strict policy for non-travel to states that have discriminatory laws on their books, most especially impacting LGBTQ communities. And at this point, there are something like 23 states that we may not travel to unless it is like absolute mission critical. And the state and the governor's office do not view these conferences as mission critical. But we tend to try to avail ourselves of online opportunities and our own personal conversations. The national annual meeting is coming up in August, and it is in Chicago. Fortunately, a state that we can visit. So we'll be certainly keeping you posted and updating you then. But I'd be delighted to answer any questions on anything in my report or anything else that's going on. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Should we ask for any public comment at this time?
Never hurts.
Well, let's open it up for public comment then.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
I apologize. We do actually have one request for comment. Okay, so from Noemi Barges, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm the interim director from Citrus College, and I wanted to know, do directors have access to NCSBN, or is it only NECs?
Oh, thank you for the question. As far as I know, in terms of there is of course the general NCSBN website, ncsbn.org, and there is a lot of information for the general public available that way. The specific passport information, I think you do have to be part of the board, but I will look into that.
Thank you.
And I'll let Misty Young and her staff know that you can your NECs should be able to let you know if there is that resource open and how to access it.
I do think you're correct, Elaine, that to be in that part of the hive, to be able to get that additional information, you have to be part of the board.
Right.
And I want to put in a plug to all the rest of the members to check that out, because it really is just, there's so much information and discussion on there, much of what pertains to what we do, and it is very interesting. And there, NCSBN will send you a little update on like the bills that are going out, and they sent out the report where they surveyed the nurses and information that's just pertinent to what's going on right now. So, and they're not long emails, but it really gives you that encapsulated update. So there's my plug. And our executive committee report is in your packet. Are there any comments or questions about that?
I have a quick question. This is Board Member Sunsun. So overall, I do want to thank the entire board, everyone that's part of the information that we're putting out there, as well as the NCSBN that's provided what resources they have available to everyone. My question is in regards to providing such information and awareness. So currently, I am subscribed to our newsletter just to see what's coming across from a regulation standpoint or anything else that may impact what we do. But I do want to know, for all the other resources that are available, does it also come through that subscription, that list as well? And I'm asking this question because there's so much information out there. So if someone wants to be abreast of what's going on within this field, what would be the best way or the best resource? Should it just be one source, or do they have to subscribe to all?
What do you say, Elaine?
That's a terrific question, and I'm so glad you asked. Interestingly enough, AEO Mark Ito and I were just discussing the newsletter concept that the board has asked us to move forward on, and we do hope to be publishing a more general and really accessible newsletter on everything the board is working on that would be publicly available, but electronically mostly. And we should be starting to be able to produce that in the next couple of months. But generally speaking, from our website, there's a number of subscription listservs that a person signs up for and gets like the little flash emails of the agenda for this board meeting is coming up, or when the board issues, like, say, an alert to the licensees that please beware of this. So there's a very big mix of both what you're asking. And there are certain things that, yeah, you need to subscribe to, but what we do want to do, and I will tell you that I'm sure that there are people here who have heard me say this like a lot of times. Our website is in need of some tuning up, and we've been working on providing more and better and more accessible information through the website. I think both for our licensees, for the educators, for our stakeholder community. If there's some interesting particular information that you'd like us to publish, that'd be great. But the one thing that we've been, I think, a little bit, and I'll just say slow in being able to do, is provide information via social media. Right now, we don't have really the bandwidth to provide like a daily update, or, hey, go look at this link. The department's communications unit helps us out as much as they can. But interestingly enough, we don't actually even, first off, if we're providing the content, but second off, there don't seem to be a whole lot of people subscribing to the web page or the Facebook page or whichever. So we're kind of have this cross purpose going on, and it is absolutely something that we want to work on. And we'll be asking for some input.
Yeah, thanks for providing that additional information, because that was my second question into like social media, because we have our Gen Z, X,
So
and
I
millennials.
just, sorry, I didn't want to just jumping in here. Although the discussion is really great, just a reminder, it's public comment. So if there's information like these kind of things, you can comment and say, these are the things I'd like to see. But just for efficiency purposes, because it is difficult to kind of engage in a Q&A, those can be maybe taken offline or connected to, like, with the staff. But at this point, it is public comment. So comment on something you'd like to see or more. We're not phrasing questions at this time. I know it's great discussion, but I just wanted to bring us back to public comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
All right. With that, I believe we are ready to move on to agenda item 9. So licensing and evaluations report. Recommendations and possible action. Ms. Brown?
Hi. Um, uh, our licensing division report was included in the board meeting packet. Did anyone have any questions?
So on this one, do we need to take, should we take public comment? It's, or we just move on to agenda item number 10. I don't see any questions for Ms. Brown.
No, we can move ahead, Madam Chair.
Yeah, you can move.
So let's move ahead to agenda item 10, public comment on items not on the agenda. Please note, the board may not discuss or take any action on any items raised during this public comment section, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. So can we please open for any further public comments?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment for items not on the agenda, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand icon. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
I would, thank you so much. And we are ready to move to agenda item 11, suggestions for future agenda items. And the board, do you have any suggestions for future agenda items? All right, seeing none, we can move on to agenda item number 12. And that would be to adjourn this meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
John Dirkinger, so moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Abraham Miller, second.
And I believe, is there any discussion on this? And I think we do have to have public comment because we asked for a motion.
Read so, Madam Chair.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants may raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. All right, and seeing no requests for public comment, would you like me to close that Q&A feature?
I would, thank you. Let's take a roll call vote on adjournment. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Guzman?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey? Shall we move on, Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Sanson?
Yes.
And I'm Carol Mountain. I also vote yes. That carries by a vote of 9. This meeting stands adjourned at 11:40. Thank you all so much for attending and for your participation.
Thank you, everyone. Nice work.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.